A lot of you guys have been hitting me up about the PsyD and whether or not you should go into getting a PsyD. And I always talk about the pros and the cons. If you can make a pros and cons list and really self-assess for yourself whether or not it's going to be worth it for you, then hopefully you can make the best decision for you. What is up, fam? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Phil Sarpon. This is Phil's Guide to PsyD. This channel is dedicated to all things psychology, wellness, and graduate school. If it's your first time here, welcome. Today, what we are going to talk about are some of the reasons of why to not get a PsyD. Now, I did do a video in the past about why to not get a PsyD that did get a lot of popularity, and so I'm doing a part 2 just to add on some other additional things that you should probably think about before you go into getting a PsyD. So one of the things that I didn't talk about in that previous video was family and social pressure. A lot of you have mentioned how there's a lot of family pressure, social pressure in order to become a psychologist. If you want to become a psychologist just because of the social pressure that your family or that your friends or that your loved ones is putting on you, you really do need to self-assess and reassess on whether or not this is something that you want to do or whether or not someone else wants you to do. And I think this is really important because psychology is not the type of field to go into just because someone told you so or just because you think it's going to be the thing that you need to do based on social pressures and so forth. I think this is one of those careers that I think a lot of people feel called to in a lot of different ways. It is not the easiest type of career, and so you really do need to make sure that it is something that you individually want to do. The next thing is that you should probably avoid a PsyD if you do not like research or you don't like stats. The reason that I mention this is that there's a lot of programs, whether it's Masters of Counseling or Social Work or other ways to become a therapist or a life coach, that involve helping people and treating people and doing therapy with people, but do not involve stats or research at all. And the thing about psychology is that it is embedded in this profession that you have to understand the basic underlying principles of stats and research. Most, if not all, psychology programs are going to have you do a dissertation that's going to involve you learning how to do stats and you learning how to do a research project and having to do a live experiment and analyzing the data and actually producing the results and drafting a report. You're going to be someone who will have a lot of opportunities to really push the field of mental health in a really powerful way. And if you don't know how to do research and contribute to the nature of the field, then you should definitely think about doing something else if you don't like research or stats. Now, there's a lot of PsyD programs that will have a varying range of how many stats courses that you have to take. Some PsyD programs maybe don't emphasize the stats as much, and so with that I would really encourage you to reach out to the school in terms of how many classes that they expect their students to take when it comes to specifically stats. Some schools only have you do 1 or 2 stats courses, some have you do 3 or 4 or 5, right? And then some have really high expectations of the research level that you need to be at. And so it's really important to do your research and figure out what's going to be expected out of you when it comes to stats. The last reason to not go into a PsyD is for the salary. Now, it is true that most generally psychologists do make more than master level therapists, but if you were to look online and see a lot of data that is coming out about private practice therapists, it's really not that big of a difference. In fact, a private practice therapist can make anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000 and maybe even more than $100,000 a year. And that is a very similar salary, if not more, than other psychologists who might be just working in mental health counseling centers or in other different positions in academic centers and so forth. So it's really important to understand that going into this career just because of the salary doesn't necessarily make that much sense, because there's a lot of master level therapists who are making just as much as psychologists. Now, is it true that as a psychologist you will have way more diversity and range of some of the work experiences that you can have? Absolutely, but I think I would encourage you to really do your research in terms of what it's going to take to go through PsyD school and have potentially more student loan debt than a master's level therapist. And if you think about it, even though an entry-level psychologist may be making a lot more than an entry-level therapist, an entry-level therapist is going to have way less student loan debt to worry about. So it really may not make that big of a difference if, you know, they're having to pay off all the student loans for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. You really may not see a big difference in terms of the salary potential until 10, 20 years from now. And so that's something to think about. And so those are the 3 reasons that I have for you guys today. Is the big thing with the family and the social pressure, make sure that it's really your personal decision. The next thing is really with research and stats. If you don't like research and stats, it's really hard to avoid that if you're gonna go into a clinical psychology program. And the last thing, of course, is gonna be the salary. Don't do it just for the money, because there are other things that you can do that are gonna make way more money. And even if you want to become a master's level therapist and just do therapy, you will still have opportunities to make potentially just as much money as a psychologist. With that, if you guys have any questions about that, leave it down in the comment section below. If you have not already, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and I will see you guys in the next video.